Doctor Who fans, and welcome to the first of our season Doctor Who season one reviews for the Who universe. Well, we've got a very exciting weekend for us, especially considering it's the launch of the new season. A very exciting weekend for all of us Whovians right now. We've got two episodes to discuss this weekend, considering it's the opening weekend. And also on top of that, there's also this Eurovision madness going on in between, which, I mean, that's only for any Doctor Who fans who might be interested in the whole Eurovision stuff, which will be later this evening. But I mean, especially for those who might be interested in checking that out. But and see if we end up doing better than last year, I suppose. We're going to, obviously, in terms of how we're going to review these two episodes, I think we're going to go in the order because I think, so essentially how we're going to upload these reviews is essentially we're going to have this one come out for the about 30 minutes, and then obviously from 8:30 onwards, we'll have the Devil's Core review where I'll discuss about that episode for those who might be interested in hearing what I've got to say about Devil's Core. The second episode of the series, which I think I have a lot to say with Devil's Core actually, because I kind of thoroughly enjoyed it, and I feel like it's probably the best episode so far in the series, and you'll see why when we get to it. But nevertheless, I hope you're all buckled in tight and stuff, because we're now going to discuss the opening story for season one, which actually turned out great actually for the show. So for those who may still need to watch it, then this is definitely a good time to sort of back away if you don't want to know any spoilers at this point, especially if you're going to be watching it later with like family members and stuff. Maybe a good time to step away at this point. If you want to like be completely blind going into this, because usually there's not two fans who like to be blind, like to walk in blind when it comes to new episodes. So if you want to do that, then be sure to do so right away. But in the meantime, for those who are interested in hearing what I've got to say about Space Babies, which is opening up the series, well, let's begin, shall we? And I think the first things first, we have to address the absolutely amazing performance from Ncuti Gatwa. Him as the Doctor just clicks. It really does. I mean, Russell's been saying it for weeks now that hey, it's meant to be. It's literally meant to be. Like the way that Ncuti puts himself out there as the Doctor within the first episode. The energy he brings is very, in fact, it almost is sort of in the same level as David Tennant, but maybe even more than David Tennant, which I know it's crazy for me to say that because a lot of us look up as David Tennant as probably the most energetic Doctor Who. But man, this guy's more energetic than David Tennant was. I'm not even kidding. Just some of the level of performance we saw out of him is just it almost feels like we're seeing the Doctor in real life, sort of a bit of ourselves is in him, which is really, really weird for me to say that because this is supposed to be a fictional character, but he's acting like he's some person you would actually meet in real life. Like it's really weird. Honestly, the energy that Ncuti Gatwa brings to each of the episodes that he does is just truly amazing. And I have to applaud it because Ncuti Gatwa just he blows you away. Literally, he just blows you away with his performance. He was born for this role. Even if some people think, oh, why is this guy playing the Doctor? No, he was born for this. And I think Russell made a very, very good choice for Ncuti as the Doctor because because Ncuti was made for this. He was made for this role. He was made to excite us in some way. And yeah, sure, it's the first black Doctor. I get it, but he was made for this. He was literally made for this, and I'm fully looking forward to seeing all the rest of the series and how he's going to grow as the Doctor heading into next year's series, where we'll have when we're going to have another companion involved with Ruby and the Doctor. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he evolves within the next year and throughout this series in particular. But anyway, in terms of the story, obviously, as they've said before in interviews, it definitely does pick up when Ruby enters the TARDIS for the second time. And then obviously the Doctor says, I am the Doctor. And they start their first travels and they go to the dinosaur era, which is actually kind of funny because they have a little bit of a line about the butterfly effect. And so, oh, what happens if I stand on the butterfly? And the Doctor's like, oh, that's never going to happen. Lo and behold, the second they come out of the TARDIS, she stands on the butterfly. And then she turns into this sort of butterfly-esque character who is very angry at the Doctor about, oh, you came into the wrong timeline. And then the doctor's like, yeah, we're gonna go now, which is kind of funny. It's really funny how she ends up standing on a butterfly, and then the doctor blows it and manages to save it and put Rui back to her place, which is really, really funny how that opened. It was so good between Millie and Shooty. There's such an energy together, aren't they? You can see from their performances, and Millie's having a great time. Millie Gibson's loving it. As the companion, you can tell from all the performances she does. But yeah, they definitely are acting like best friends for sure. You can definitely see it right away in this episode, the friendship that is building between the two. And yeah, so the whole gist of this episode, for those who are trying to make sense of everything, essentially we're in a baby farm, which Russell has spoken about in interviews that, he was thinking about this idea because he heard something in real life about baby farms, because there was an article, I believe, late last year he mentioned about baby farms, and I'm probably gonna, it's probably somewhere on Google. If you search for it, you'll probably find it, where he came up with this idea about baby farms run by babies, and that's how he sort of inspired himself to make this story. It's kind of interesting the way that obviously the babies were voiced by voice actors. Of course, it was pretty obvious from the cast list that this was. I kind of figured I was right about the voice actors voicing the baby characters, and I was right on that one. But essentially, yeah, it's really weird because these babies were just been left to run things without their parents being around, and even and you would go into this episode, you'd be thinking, why are their parents leaving them to run the ship when they're supposed to be adults running the ship? Yeah, you would get that sense of like they shouldn't be running this. They're children. Lo and behold, we do find out that there is that the person speaking on the who are making the announcements of the ship is, in course, the nanny, the guest star who was announced about 2 months ago. Funny enough, we only found out about her 2 months ago, but we finally get to see her. She was in this episode. Can't remember the name of her, but you'll know when you see the character. But yeah, essentially she talks about the crew fleeing, because we do see videos of the previous crew who were on the ship, who, funny enough, they were dressed up almost identical to Star Trek, especially with the outfits, with all the different color outfits. It almost kind of reminds me of the Star Trek outfits that many of the Star Trek actors would wear when they're portraying their characters, which I don't know if that was a bit of a callback to Star Trek. I would imagine it is, considering they were wearing different color outfits. That it's almost identical to the famous Star Trek who brought the series to life. Funny enough. So yeah, so it might be a little bit of a callback there to Star Trek. But yeah, so we do get to see the dad that, she talks about the fact that, she was just too afraid about the babies dying. And then of course on top of that, you've got the bogeyman who, yes, this is an enemy, and it just so happens that the bogeyman was basically made out of baby sneeze, pretty much alien bogies, as the 11th Doctor used to put it. But yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, to think that it was a simple bogies from babies that would make the bogeyman. I love that classic. Oh, it was obvious moment. But yeah, so we have a bit of the whole baby sneeze making the bogeyman, and then of course it became apparent that hey, the Doctor wants to save the bogeyman now, instead of, because he was afraid for a moment, but it turns out he was just simply made out of baby bogies, and was made as a part of a story that they were told, that the babies were told by the adults. And then you got the nanny who was almost trying to get rid of the bogeyman and send it out of space, but luckily the Doctor prevented that from happening. And then obviously I just love the fact that the Doctor and Ruby's trying to prevent the whole bogeyman's disappearance. Actually, the energy was just brilliant between the two on that front. Yeah, so it's really really good, interesting to see that they were and then of course the bogeyman wasn't scaring the babies at the same time, which was at least a good thing, that he basically howled like a werewolf instead of like being a scary voice, like he was like some kind of an alien. So yeah, luckily they fixed that. And then of course we found out that the reason why the ship couldn't move, because the ship couldn't move to this planet, was because of all the nappies they were employing. Because yes, the ship was basically, these engines were caught because of all the dampers they were blowing in. And luckily, as soon as the Doctor freed that, they were able to go to their new home, which is brilliant. So yeah, so that was a kind of a gist of how the Space Babies came again about. It's basically the whole concept of the story was essentially the babies were essentially left alone. They were sort of fearing the bogeyman, and in the process, they didn't realize it was actually the baby's bogies that was making the bogeyman in the process. And then, of course, the Nan thought it was an evil creature that just came in out of nowhere, when actually crew who were there before were essentially building this monster with baby bogies to make it as some sort of to make the story real for the babies. It was essentially how they basically planted all these seeds, etc. Speaking of planting seed, this story does indeed open up the whole story arc in a way for the Doctor and Ruby, and it all comes back to that whole church on Ruby Road moment. The whole snow in the church, Ruby being abandoned. We definitely had some references in this episode, especially the Doctor having a flashback of the woman who was put in the black coat who left Ruby, who we assume is Ruby's mother, pointing at him, which is very interesting because we never saw that scene in the Church of Ruby Road. We never got to see her pointing at the Doctor. So it sounds to me like it almost looked like the Doctor might possibly know who she is, and he's trying to hide that as much as possible, because it's interesting how she points at the Doctor like she knows who he is. Or you could look at this as two ways essentially. You could look at this as like she's this sort of evil being and she points at the Doctor, and the Doctor fears that, oh, this could be an evil foe. Or it could be phrased as like, oh, this is a woman who's pointing at him, telling the Doctor, don't interfere in Ruby's life, otherwise there'll be consequences sort of response. So it kind of be phrased by two things, like this could be a foe who's trying to tell the Doctor stay out of business, stay out of the way, stay out of business, or it could be simply an enemy who's being disguised as Ruby's mother, basically trying to point at the Doctor saying, get out of my way and stop trying to ruin my plans in process, which clearly this could go either way at this point. But the fact that we see the snow from that church being brought back into the story, and the fact that the snow would appear in the spaceship, makes you wonder what is so significant about that snow that is going to be coming back more and more. It's almost like that snow keeps coming back in this story. So it's almost like there could be something there regarding Snow and the Ruby Sunday. Like what is there? What's connecting the dots here? I'm sure we're going to learn more as the series progresses, but it's very interesting that we see the snow of the ship, and it all seems to be, this memory seems to be heavily implying something big is coming later in the series, and it's all going to tie into that church on Ruby Road, and it begs the question like, why that church specifically? So hopefully we'll get some better understanding of it as we progress through the series, hopefully. But nevertheless, it was really cool though that, of course, as it's Ruby's first trip, she was able to make a call to her foster mother. Obviously, I'll call it foster mother because obviously she doesn't have a real mom, obviously. And then, of course, the fact that the TARDIS lands in the kitchen and breaks the roof. And also, very interestingly, we see at the very end of the episode, which I thought was also very interesting, the Doctor was scanning Ruby, which is almost identical to how the Doctor scanned Amy about the pregnancy stuff. Because, in case you may have not seen, there was this story arc in Series 6 where the Doctor was trying to figure out, oh, is Amy pregnant? Is she not pregnant? Because she kept mentioning to the Doctor at the start of the series, like, oh, I'm pregnant. And then she pretends that she wasn't pregnant, and the Doctor was trying to figure out what was going on here. It almost kind of reminds me of that a little bit, that the Doctor's trying to scan to see, oh, could there be something in Ruby that he doesn't know? But what was really interesting is as soon as he leaves the TARDIS and they were scanning Ruby, the TARDIS was covered in snow, which is very interesting. So there's obviously something going on with the snow here. Like, there's this recurring theme. If anyone looks up Ruby, there's going to be snow. So what's with that? Like, why does the snow always appear as soon as somebody searches Ruby or scans Ruby or even finds something inside of Ruby, that snow pops up? What's with that? Hopefully we'll get more clues as to what that is all about, hopefully in the future episodes, hopefully, because it's It's very, very interesting how it seems to be only happening when they're scanning something within Ruby, or if there's a memory that the Doctor has of Ruby, that's when the snow shows up. Or at least that's kind of how I'm phrasing this sort of moment here, because it kind of makes it sound like that, especially with the way that they're labeling everything at the moment. But yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure we're going to learn more as to what's going on with that Ruby Sunday stuff. But nevertheless, I think it was a pretty nice, nice cozy start for the series, Space Babies. Actually, it was obviously the Doctor, do obviously the typical Doctor Who running through corridors. I think we've been used to that for a long time now. It just, yeah, I feel like it was a pretty decent start to the series. I feel like. I mean, I'll be interested to hear what everyone else thinks of the story in the conversation below. Did you enjoy this more than the Devil's Core, or do you prefer Devil's Core than Space Babies? And we'll talk about Devil's Core very shortly in part two of our reviews here. But nevertheless, I actually don't mind Space Babies. Actually, I felt it was a pretty nice start to show the chemistry between the Doctor and Ruby, and the fact that they're just out there having a great time as best friends. And that's kind of what I think, that was the kind of feeling that we were sort of missing slightly between the 13th and Yaz. I feel like they even though they were trying to be best friends, Yaz kind of had a relationship with the Doctor at kind of had like a crush on the Doctor at the same time, and the Doctor doesn't really do that type of stuff. So that's why it just, yeah, it was all over the place, that part. But even though I did enjoy your 13th Doctor and Yaz, I feel like this chemistry between the Doctor and it just work, just seems to be more interesting to look at than the whole 13th and Yaz sort of chemistry, in my opinion. But either way, I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing of of Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. I think they are doing amazing work with him, and I think he's doing an amazing job as the 15th Doctor. I have no doubt to believe there's a lot more madness to come as we progress through the series, so I cannot wait. But again, let me hear in the comment section what you make of Space Babies, and I'm going to very shortly swivel over to Devil's Core. The episode regarding the Beatles. Yes, the Beatles. Lots of things for me to say on that one. Just saying. A lot of really good things as well. But yes, and of course there'll be links to see the Space Babies in the conversation as well as links to the Whoniverse if you want to see all the previous Doctor Who episodes. Whilst you're waiting for the new episodes, more new episodes to roll out. Also, there's Doctor Unleash, which is going to also be on the Whoniverse later tonight. For those who want to see the behind the scenes of Space Babies and Devil's Core, you'll see that on BBC Three. That'll be from 8 o'clock over there if you're in the UK and you want to see the behind the scenes stuff. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be looking forward to catching you all very shortly for the second of our reviews, looking at Devil's Core, the Beatles story. Can't wait to talk about this one. It's going to be good, trust me. I'll see you very shortly, guys.